What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch here. I'm joined by Mike. We're here to talk some Pittsburgh Steelers football, the NFL draft. We're going to give you our grade, our analysis, our thoughts on the Pittsburgh Steelers 2019 draft. Mike, how's it going, bro? You haven't been on the channel in a while. Let the people know. And also, just what's your initial thoughts on this Pittsburgh Steelers draft?
Well, first of all, I'm excited to be here. School is winding up for me, so you might see me on a few more videos with a little bit more free time here. But this draft, I am extremely excited about. I think they kind of learned from their mistakes of the past and really targeted those needs and found the best players available to fill those needs. I was absolutely stoked with the trade up, like it was something kind of foreshadowed, and I assumed would happen. I don't think they gave up too much. Like I know if you look at that Jimmy Johnson draft grade sheet thing, they gave up too many points. But when it comes to a player that is such a big need and there's such a big fall off at linebacker after, I think they made the right call. So all in all, just my little grade here, I think it was perfect. Like they did everything they had to do.
All right, yeah, I've been preaching that the Pittsburgh Steelers have needed a middle linebacker, an inside linebacker, kind of a guy that can basically clean up the trash at the second level and be a sideline to sideline backer for quite some time, at least since Ryan Shazier has gone down with the injury, at the very least. And even some would say since Troy Polamalu retired, who kind of acted as the Steelers' middle linebacker more so than linebackers on the team. So with the first round pick, as you alluded to, they select Devin Bush of Michigan, 4.4 speed, 234 pounds. I believe he's under 6 foot. I think he's 5'11", but he plays with tenacity. He is a quick player, sideline to sideline, and he's a great leader. Mike, what do you think of this pick, man?
I was excited. This is a guy that I thought way back before the combine, before his stock really shot up, that was the guy I was like, okay, this is who we'll probably end up with around 20. It's perfect. There's no way he gets past us. But as we move further in the combine process, he cemented himself as a top 10 pick. They had to get in front of Cincinnati. You know, the Bengals jumped in front of the Steelers a couple years back and snatched William Jackson III. Steelers get forced to take Artie Burns. We kind of know how that ends up. So now they're kind of reversing it, jumping in front of the Bengals to take probably the guy that was on top of their board after Vontaze Burfict left. I think this pick was absolutely a no-brainer and something they kind of had to do. Now they cement their defense, bringing in Mark Barron, so they got a little bit of veteran help. Last year, they still had the same issue, and their thought process to fix it was just bringing John Bostic. Clearly, they cut him immediately after the draft, so clearly that was a mistake. They bring in a guy who, like you said, sideline to sideline, he loves to hit. He plays well in coverage. It's funny, I think he's the better Ryan Shazier as Shazier was coming out of college. Like, Ryan did a lot of things incredible. His biggest flaws was the fact that he was kind of the prototype fast backer, and he was so damn fast with the ball that he oftentimes would overrun it or kind of get beaten coverage. I think he's been able to kind of learn, just because he's not the first. He's kind of taken those lessons that guys like Ryan Shazier, those linebackers that we're seeing now that run that 4-4, 4-3, 4-5. I think he's learned from them and created a more all-around game, and he's the perfect prototypical linebacker for today's game. This pick was absolutely everything the team needed to do. They hit that nail on the head. This was a great pick.
And I would say if there's one flaw in his game, I would say that it is that he's a little too small. Sometimes he kind of gets caught up on blocks a little bit. But in the Steelers scheme, I think he was the perfect fit for the Steelers in particular, because in their scheme, the linebackers don't really take on the blocks as much as some of the other schemes. So it allows him to kind of run freely like Shazier did. And hopefully, like you said, that was a good point. Possibly he has the awareness even more so than Shazier to make the plays and not overrun plays and not be too aggressive. So looking at their linebacker depth right now, you know, they have Mark Barron, as you brought up, Devin Bush as well, Vince Williams. Do you just see those three primarily playing as inside linebackers, or do you think anyone else will kind of rotate in there?
So basically what I've seen from all the press conferences, those are going to be the guys. You're going to see some, I think, some safeties kind of jigger around a little bit. I think Terrell Edmonds was still kind of a guy that they saw as like a nickel backer, and he plays a little bit of safety on those earlier downs. It's going to be interesting because I know they also said Marcus Allen, strong safety they picked out of Penn State a year ago, is going to compete at more linebacker. So clearly they're going that lighter model. But I think it's really doesn't – I don't see anyone else really slotting in. Like LJ Fort was a guy that kind of played some big minutes, but he signed to Philly on a really big contract. Good for him. Credit to him. But not a guy that I would have expected to be like a starting middle linebacker in this league. But those three, like you mentioned, Barron, Williams, because he knows the playbook, I think he's pretty much slotted himself on the field. Barron will probably push Williams off the field at some point this year is my guess. I can't see Devin Bush not starting at will. I think it's guaranteed, and then Williams will probably get pushed back. He only has 2 years left on his deal. I just don't really see him. It's hard to see him coming back. He has been like a kind of a force on that defense. He's a hard hitter, but I think this is kind of just evolving more into that speed backer role. So I really think Devin Bush, you're going to see him take majority of the snaps, and then 50-50 Barron and Williams with some safeties kind of slotting in here and there.
In the third round, 66th overall, they go with a receiver. We knew that was a need after Antonio Brown got traded to the Oakland Raiders and that whole situation. So Antonio Brown's gone, but they replace him with another 5'10" receiver, Deontay Johnson from Toledo. Now, are you concerned that he only ran a 4.53 at 5'10"? That kind of seems on paper a little bit concerning. What's your thoughts on him?
It's so funny you mentioned that. Look at Antonio Brown's combine. It's identical, like across the board.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's going to be Antonio Brown. That is ridiculous. But the thing he does do incredibly well is run crisp, perfect routes. That is how Antonio Brown was successful. His route running was outstanding. He's small enough to just cut on a dime. I'm not worried about his size at all. I think this receiving core is deep enough. I don't think in the NFL, even today, I don't think you need an outstanding receiving core to win a Super Bowl. Look at the list of the most recent Super Bowl champions. How many unbelievable top 5 wide receivers are there? None, for the most part. There's some talented guys, but they're not unbelievable. They're not Julio Joneses. They're not DeAndre Hopkins. You don't need these guys. You don't need to pay these guys a ton to win Super Bowls. Yeah, they make incredible plays, but you play good defense and you just catch the ball and get first downs. That's all you can ask for out of a wide receiver. Just get the first down, catch the ball, get open. And with his ability to run those clean routes, as long as he can get some separation and catch the ball, I'm not worried about it. I think this is a great pick, especially with who they have on the team already. I think he can kind of be blanketed a little bit and kind of groomed to come in. I'm not worried about his size or speed. I think this was a really good pick.
Do you think he has any opportunity to play a lot this year, or how do you really see the depth chart at receiver kind of shaping up? Because they have Juju obviously as their number one. And then there's a bunch of other guys competing for spots. So James Washington is a high pick they had last year, but he doesn't really have a spot settled. Eli Rogers is kind of consistent slot receiver force they've had. They brought in Dante Moncrief, who's had success in the past. Ryan Switzer was played quite a bit last year. How do you see these guys kind of shaping up on the depth chart?
I have a feeling it might kind of switch up a little bit from kind of what we saw, kind of getting away from all the spread all the time to kind of seeing more tight ends, especially with the tight end that we'll talk about a little bit later. I think we could see some more power sets, especially with their running back rotation now with another draft pick. But I could see Juju Smith-Schuster, of course, a pure number one. Vance McDonald, when healthy, is an outstanding, I think, a top 10 tight end in the league just because there aren't many incredible tight ends. I think he's a guy that can slot into that kind of conversation. James Washington is spoken highly of, and they are preaching that he's taken humongous steps, and they're loving what he's doing in these OTAs so far. So we'll see what happens there. I think where it gets dicey is there's going to be a slot competition. I think there's room for both Eli Rogers and Ryan Switzer. That kind of means you might have to go into the season a little light on O-line depth, but I think the Steelers are completely fine with who they got on their O-line. It's going to be interesting seeing who played, because Juju will be on the X. Who's going to be playing that Y on the far side? Dante Moncrief might be the guy that starts there just based on his size and speed, but I think we're going to see James Washington and Deontay Johnson kind of start pushing him out. He's not a long-term fix. I think this receiving core is going to be fine.
If I had to guess, I would think that they would give James Washington every chance to get that spot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Okay. Then we go to the third round once again, 83rd overall, Justin Lane, cornerback of Michigan State. Now, a lot of people thought the Steelers would take a corner in the first round, including myself. They didn't. They have Joe Hayden. They have Steven Nelson, who they brought in from Kansas City. They have Mike Hilton as the nickelback. Now they add Justin Lane. He's taller. He's more of an outside corner, 6'2" for Michigan State. What do you think of him? Where do you think he slots in?
This is interesting. Another pick I like. There's some picks I love, some picks I didn't love so much. This is one for sure that I loved. He's someone, especially with the depth they already have, that doesn't have to play right away, but it also allows the team to kind of push some of those corners historically that haven't been making those plays, either push them to safety, let them compete there, or just kind of move on from some of these guys. He represents some great depth off the top and someone who can play special teams right away. I think Joe Hayden and Steven Nelson are the guys right now. Joe Hayden is going into a free agent year. Like, I am a huge Joe Hayden fan. Don't get me wrong. I'd love for the team to re-sign him, but if you can get the same production on Lane, you're paying him way less because he's a third-round pick, then he can be a guy, not this coming season, but the year after, can slot in as a starter. Right now, I think he's just a quality depth corner and someone who could completely take over a spot next year. I am a big fan of this move. He's someone who's graded between the first and third round. Thankfully, they get him in the third round, but he's someone that could have gone a lot higher, so I'm very pleased with this pick. And he shut down one of your guys pretty damn good. One of his best games was against N'Keal Henry, rather. That was one of his best. Harry, my apologies. Yeah. I keep slipping up with that. But no, that was one of his best games of the year. It was against N'Keal. So we'll see. Maybe that was just the Pats got this guy. This guy shut him down. So
that's probably what it was.
There's that little brother thing still. Even though they beat him last year, they did make the playoffs. So there's still that little brother thing for sure. But I think it was a good move.
Okay, Benny Snell Jr. They select from Kentucky in the fourth round. Another running back. So he's supposed to be a hard-nosed runner. They have Jalen Samuels already. He's more of the receiving type of back. We saw him get some time when James Conner went down at the end of the season there. The rest of their depth chart, it's not really what it was when Le'Veon Bell was there. You kind of had the Le'Veon Bell show, and then when James Conner got there, it was James Conner was definitely the backup. But now it kind of seems like there's kind of room for a backup competition, so to speak, for the Steelers. So what do you think of this pick?
Well, it seems like more of a development now is that they're actually talking about having a pure rotation, rather. A few years ago, Le'Veon Bell is going into his sophomore year. I believe they bring in LeGarrette Blount. LeGarrette Blount halfway through the year is like, screw this amount, because the Steelers had no interest in giving the backup the ball. Then they bring in D'Angelo Williams after Le'Veon Bell gets the suspension the next year. D'Angelo Williams gets the ball a ton when Lev's out. When he comes back in, he disappears again. Le'Veon gets hurt. D'Angelo Williams plays more. So I think what we're seeing here is finally the end of that kind of, we have one workhorse. We've heard in some press conferences recently that they're going to get more guys involved. I think Snell is a guy that could completely take over as the pure number one, but we've seen a lot of good things out of Conner, who can have 150-yard, 3-touchdown games. Jalen Samuels was probably the top offensive reason why they did defeat the Pats last year. He played outstanding football. Give him props. And then Benny Snell, I think he's going to be getting a lot of those tough yardage carries. I think all these guys, the Steelers' backfield just became like a fantasy nightmare. I think I'm probably going to stay away from all of them, not to give you too many tips into my plans going into this year's fantasy draft.
No, continue. Keep going.
But no, I think that you're going to see a lot of guys getting in the field a lot more.
All right. That's interesting, because I didn't really think that. That's interesting take on the Steelers backfield, because that would be totally a change from what they've been doing the last couple of years, as you brought up with Le'Veon Bell. Zach Gentry of Michigan, don't know this guy, to be quite honest with you. Former quarterback prospect, 6'8". 6'8", tight end.
Can't teach that.
What's he gonna do?
He's an outstanding blocker. Like, I love the addition. I don't love where they took him because a lot of places. This is me kind of playing that armchair GM. What the hell do I know where other teams had him? But like most reports kind of said he would be a guy that'd be an undrafted free agent, 7th round pick. Like a bit of a reach. Like they probably could have got him in later rounds. But I understand the theory of getting your guy and what you believe they can do. This guy is humongous. Jesse James, who he's replacing, was also gigantic. He's even taller than he was, and he's a physical, outstanding blocker. So I think they brought him in specifically for those purposes.
Jesse James replacement, so to speak.
Exactly. I can't see him being a guy that's going to haul in more than 20 receptions a year, to be completely honest. He is the Matt Spaeth, if you remember him. Pure blocking. He's just going in the formation on those tight yardage to blow someone up, helping a double team. He's huge, so I think he's just a red zone weapon, whether it be him blocking or him going for a jump pass or just being a giant freaking cone that's got make a DB run around him to get to a receiver. He's not going to be an impact player per se. The impact is going to be on us kind of football types, like knowing that his role isn't statistical. It's helping other guys succeed.
An interesting pick here in the 6th round. Maybe one of my favorite picks they had was Sutton Smith of Northern Illinois. He's actually one of the more productive pass rushers in this draft and fell all the way to the 6th round. He's one of 2 players to have 10 sack seasons 2 years in a row. The other was Montez Sweat, who went in the 1st round. And that's interesting to me because knowing the Steelers, they typically don't pick outside linebackers, at least recently, who are production guys. They usually base them off of speed, strength, that sort of stuff, and athleticism more so than actual production. So what's your thoughts on this pick?
I like it from that stats perspective, but he's really small. I believe he's only 6 foot 230 for an outside rusher. He's not playing every down. He just can't play against the run. Like I could see him checking in on 3rd downs and just being told, "Hey, go get the guy." But I think this is going to be more of a special teams pick. I am a fan of his. He didn't have some incredible. Put up some incredible numbers over his time at NC. I'm pulling for him, but it's hard to see a guy who's that frame kind of make it to that next level. But you pull for someone like that.
If I could throw something out here, just speaking of the Steelers' defensive scheme, why couldn't you use him as an inside linebacker blitzer type?
I don't see anything wrong with that. I guess just traditionally he was that outside rusher, so that's kind of where we view him. That is definitely an option. Like we saw TJ Watt a few times playing inside linebacker or shadowing a receiver. He's got the speed, so why not move a guy around? I don't see any reason why you got to handcuff someone to a position that he was drafted at, especially in the defensive front side of the ball. You can move him around, but he might be someone that plays middle linebacker a little bit more. It just makes more sense for his body type because he won't be on the field on 1st and 2nd down, regardless of talent, just because he's so small. Teams would be scared unless he completely blew the barn doors off, which I'm not going to hold a 6th round pick to. So yeah.
Isaiah Buggs was another 6th round pick from Alabama. I only know this guy because he's from Alabama. That's the only reason. But to be honest with you, the Steelers, one of their big holes not a lot of people really talk about is depth at D-line, because when you see Cameron Hayward or especially Stephon Tuitt go down, Stephon Tuitt's been injured quite a bit the last couple seasons. Whenever one of those 2 guys goes down, it seems like they have a massive hole at one of those spots. So just adding depth to this position with Isaiah Buggs.
I would disagree with you for a small reason. Tyson Alualu's done a great job of filling in recently. Clearly not the same production, but like just a quality plug-and-play guy. But I've been saying this a lot. Like the pick, I'm a type of guy that's not going to like trash a pick until I see him play a couple of years. He is someone that can definitely develop. After Alualu, I don't see anyone there. So there's no reason why he can't make the team. And if he doesn't, then it just goes to show it's a burnt pick. But I think he will get the opportunities and he could see some playing time. I think this is another guy 2, maybe 3 years down the road could be making an impact. Kind of a Brett Kiesel type, a little more physically imposing than Kiesel was coming out. But I think this is one of those picks where you're like, he could be somebody. Like, he has time to marinate. He's not going to be one of those late-round picks that gets forced on playing time. They're going to let him develop. And I would say don't hold your breath until probably 2021 when you could actually get to see him playing a little bit more.
It's interesting. I'm actually checking the depth chart right now of the Steelers, and they have Sutton Smith at inside linebacker. So just throwing that out there.
I didn't know that.
Actually, this is on our lads. So that's the depth chart site I use because it's the most up to date. Mm-hmm. Gilbert the third is their last pick at linebacker. So they spent 3 picks at linebacker, and he was a tackling machine. 359 tackles in 51 career games. He probably seems like a special teams guy to me.
Well, that's kind of what you'd have to assume at those late rounds, but outstanding stats. That is unbelievable. You honestly cannot blame a guy. Like, when you put up those numbers, you're going to get picked. It's just like undisputable statistically. When you're making those tackles, people aren't falling off you. You're finishing play. So he's a guy that's definitely going to see some time at special teams. That's the thing I like about the Steelers draft. I think every single pick should make the team. Like, typically, you see a guy or two
one,
get cut.
Yeah.
Depends
on the quality of the team.
Exactly. But the thing is, I don't think it's a quality thing.
Or the undrafted quality, too.
Exactly. Are we going to talk about
if you want?
There is one guy. There is one guy after that I'm a humongous
Bring him up right now.
fan
Who is it?
PJ Locke, the third, out of Texas. Safety. Go watch his film. This guy is an outstanding hitter. He's a safety. Holy smokes. How did this guy not get drafted? Like, it befuddles me. It doesn't make any sense. He's one of the best talents. Like, some of the film is ridiculous. This guy should be making the team also based on the safety depth. I know they're going to try to push some guys to push them back a little bit from corner to safety. I've heard talks to Mike Hilton and Cam Sutton. We'll see how that goes. I'm not sure. Or Brian Allen. Is it
Artie?
A name I know? No, Artie. I think Artie. They declined his 5th-year option. I can't see him surviving training camp. If Lane shows equal talent to him, what's the point? I don't think anyone signs him either. He hasn't shown anything. He has no confidence. He can't tackle, and he gets burned on every play. I can't remember which game it was, but he was in the game for 3 downs, 3 receptions against, and 1 was a touchdown. So it's like, when you're any position, lose your confidence, it's game over. So PJ Locke, seriously, watch that film. He is a talent. Safety out of Texas. He is humongous hitting ability. He's someone who should make this team.
All right, guys, go watch that film. Mike said it. And as an offensive lineman yourself, Mike, Derwin Gray, their last pick in the draft, and I will give the Steelers credit for this. They always have one of the best offensive line just developments in the entire league. I think, right alongside my team. But they just find guys that are just come out of nowhere, and they're like, holy crap, who's this guy? So is this a guy that you think could do that, or is he just kind of a depth piece for now?
Credit Mike Munchak for a lot of that. That O-line really turned around once he got there. Denver, get ready for a good O-line. That was one of the biggest
underrated moves of the offseason was Mike Munchak to the Broncos.
I was honestly kind of upset by that. I was like, no, like this is the reason why this O-line, like, honestly, like, if they just paid him a crap ton, like, I understand it. I'm pretty sure his grandkids live in Denver, so it's like, okay, fine. Like, go be with your family. I'm not going to blame anyone for doing that. But that move hurts. But you're right. The Steelers have found a lot of guys. I think they just get the most out of their potential. And hopefully if Munchak groomed his O-line as well as he did, he groomed his assistant as well as he grooms his O-lineman, because that's who replaced him. I honestly – I'm still a believer until it changes, until the O-linemen stop developing, that there's no reason why this guy can't be a swing tackle. Like, there's no reason why he can't at least make the practice squad unless someone were to poach him. But a guy like from last year, Chuck Sikorafor, he's a guy who stepped in for a couple games after Marcus Gilbert's injury and Matt Filer's injury and played really well. I think that was against Von Miller too, and I'm pretty sure he didn't allow a sack. which is incredible for your first start. And I think he was like a 5th-round pick. That is outstanding. So I'm not going to say an O-lineman cannot develop in this system until it stops working. I know Munchak's not there, but his disciples still are. So we'll see kind of more moving into the next couple of years. Their O-line is set. He's not going to start. There's no way. He'll be like 4th, probably around 4th on that depth chart. Because actually 3rd on that rotation. Because Finney's more of an inside guy. You're going to see like Hawkins as a swing, and then Okorafor as the other kind of all positions O lineman. So I if they hold 9, which would be a lot.
I think you can only like have 7 or I think it's 8.
I think they typically travel 7.
Yeah,
have like
and then you have a couple guys scratched or 1 or 2 guys scratched.
Exactly. So it'll be interesting once the roster kind of goes into shape because they have a ton of corners, ton of wide receivers,
practice squad guy.
Line. Exactly. But the only thing with that is you can kind of poach from other teams' practice squad. So we'll see what happens there. But all in all, big fan of the Steelers draft.
Don't give me the grade yet because I need to ask you one final question here. Is there a position that you think they should have addressed with one of these picks? Possibly a position that they did address, but they didn't address high enough? Is safety that position where they kind of left it out? Is depth that's a certain position?
Okay, so that's interesting. I was a huge fan of Chase Winovich. I was hoping they would take him. I know your team got him, but it's like that kind of hurt. That one stung a little bit. Just a
They're calling him
guy.
the new Minkovich over here, and I don't know why. I mean, it kind of, I don't think the name has anything to do with that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, maybe. But there's something to say about high motor guys that you can't really like. You want them on your team. Like even if they're not that good, they're always going to be around the ball. And that's like you just can't get enough of that. So that's something I kind of wish they did, but I'm glad or happy with the players that they got instead. Like Bud Dupree is good. He needs to take like average to good. He's not anything.
It seems like he's been needing to take the next step for like 3 years.
Yeah. Well, this is his 5th year, his 5th year option. So if this isn't it, then I just let him move on. Give him the Jarvis Jones treatment. Like they kind of missed on a couple of those outside linebackers.
Do you think they could have? So you think it's edge rusher depth?
Yeah, I think moving forward, I think next year that's going to be your top draft priority. Maybe another quarterback, just because he'll have 2 years left after this coming season.
Yep.
So that's probably what you focus on. I wouldn't go safety particularly high in this draft. I know they didn't go at it at all, just based on going 1st round with Edmonds last year and him coming back from a surgery and like right at the beginning of camp, just kind of starting to get healthy.
And I do like Sean Davis. I think he's decent.
The position switch helped him. He went from strong safety, which he wasn't used to free safety, and he played it way better. So I'll give him a lot of credit too. So I don't mind either of those guys back there. I'm expecting Edmonds to take a fairly large step. Like, I don't think he's going to be Troy. I don't think he's going to be anything outstanding. I don't think he's going to be top 10 safety. I don't think he's going to be a bottom 10 safety. Like, just kind of an average player. There's nothing wrong with that. It's disappointing that you get that in the 1st round, though.
Yeah.
But I think they are all right at safety.
All right.
Other than that, I'm quite happy where they got their players. Just for the most part, really good value. Snell is a type of guy who could have went higher just because how successful Kentucky was this year. And I think he was a big part of that success. So it'll be interesting to see how they use their running backs, and I hope there is more of a rotation because I want to see all 3 guys really touch the ball. But all in all, I think they kind of did it right. They addressed their biggest needs, and they did it with their first 4 picks. 5 picks, really, including the tight end.
So what's the letter grade?
I know there's a bias, but I think every team, unless you reach on every single pick, how do you not give an A right away just based on them moving up and getting the top? There's only 2 good backers, really. The next linebacker was 60 picks after, so they had to make the move for their guy. I think they did that. I think they added to their receiver depth, their corner depth. They added the backup tight end that they needed, and they added to their running back rotation while adding some other depth guys at the bottom end. Until you see them play, I'm going to side with the GM and the scouting staff because they put way more time and effort than any of us. So people coming out and saying, "Oh, this team got a C." How do you know until you see them play?
It's a guess.
Exactly. So I'm going to give every team an A until I reevaluate like a year from now, and then
Well,
5 years
it
from now.
depends. Are you giving the Giants an A?
Well, I think in that situation, I think you could give them a B, but you got
I
to
gave him a
imagine,
B.
like, you got to look at it and be like, okay, well, clearly this was their guy. Like, if you're going to
Yeah.
pass on
No,
Haskins,
that's what I said, man, but I'm still not willing to give them an A when they reached like that. Like, there's a difference. There's
I
some
understand
teams
it.
that I feel like they can pick the right positions that I feel like they need, but they reach.
Yeah.
And there's some teams that pick way off. They don't even address their needs. There's some of those teams too. Those are the only teams that I really dock. And then the teams that pick players that I really like, then I'll give them like A, you know?
Yeah. So I think getting Devin Bush was a reason why you call it an A. I don't think they gave up too much. Like the second and the third next year, they're going to get another third compensatory for losing Le'Veon Bell. So that's a wash. They're still going to have their 7 picks next year. So I'm not really too concerned about that. I think it was fine what they had to do. And with those extra picks, they still got the players they needed to fill those holes. So I think it's an A time being. A couple years from now, if 3 or 4 of those guys are a starter, then hell, this is definitely an A draft. They got their franchise linebacker. I think Devin Bush is their guy for the future. There's no reason to believe he's not, especially with the way the NFL is going. I think they got their guy. And you know what? If you find one All-Pro in a draft, you won. You won. Like in all honesty, if you have 10 years, every single year you find an All-Pro. Having 10 All-Pros in your team, you're probably winning the damn Super Bowl. So I'm a big fan of the move.
Yeah, I would give them an A minus. I think the only minus comes from just like, I think they got an A plus first round. And then after the first round, I think it's about a B plus. So like kind of averaging that out, it's like an A minus. So I think they did pretty well. Like you said, they addressed most of their big needs. I would have liked to have seen them possibly address the safety position a little bit later in the draft just for depth purposes. But outside of that, that's just kind of nitpicking and complaining because that's what I do. But overall, I actually think the Steelers are an underrated team this year. It's kind of weird saying that because they've always been overrated in my opinion. But they're coming into this year underrated, and like it feels weird like to have to actually back up and be a defender of the Steelers because people are not liking the Steelers this year, man.
It's really strange. Like I've been saying this. I know Skip Bayless has been saying it as well, and like anytime you have a Skip take, you're insane. But this is Ben's MVP or bust year. Like if the Steelers are good, they make the playoffs. If he leads the league in passing again, like of course if someone does like
I don't even think it has to be statistical. I think it just has to be visual. Like if you see him physically carrying the team, like it doesn't have to be who has to win the MVP. It doesn't have to have 5,000 yards or 40 touchdowns. But if you just see him like, oh, Big Ben's making all these crazy throws, and you see him at the end of the game-winning touchdowns, like that's a great season for Ben.
Yeah, no, I think this is really going to be the year when everyone's like, because there's been a lot of coach and GM bashing for a while. Like as much as I loved Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown, I've played on teams where we've had cancerous players that don't show up to practice. They think they're better than the team, and we sucked. Those players leave. The next year, that same team won the damn championship with the worst players in the roster. Like it makes a difference. Locker room cancers seriously bring a team down. It really doesn't make sense unless you've been through it. But I think there's no reason why this team can't be better than they really are, or that they're kind of being projected to be. Well, I think they're fine.
Their roster is a playoff roster. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I think they have their best defense talent-wise they've had in a while. And that's saying a lot because I've always been critical of the Steelers defense. Offensively, I don't think it's much of a loss. People are like, oh, they lost Le'Veon Bell. He didn't play last year.
Exactly.
Okay, Antonio Brown, yeah, they lost him. That's a loss. But, I mean, like you said, the cancer thing, there could be something to that. It's like they still have a top 5 offensive line. They still have Ben Roethlisberger, They have a Hall of Fame quarterback. They have a coach that, I'm not the biggest fan of, but he's proven that he's gotten it done. So I can't doubt them that they're not a playoff team this year, especially with a lot of the other teams like a Chiefs team that I think is kind of is iffy to me. I don't know, especially with Tyreek Hill, but Yeah.
That's a can of worms. And then, oh my God, that trade and then signing, that was a lot of money. I'm not.
Frank Clark.
Oof. Yeah, the Frank Clark move. Like I like Frank Clark, but is he worth more than DeMarcus Lawrence? I do not think so. But clearly they did, so they made a move. But I'm a little shaky when it comes to those Chiefs this year. Like Mahomes, will he have a sophomore slump? Probably, because he's lost a lot of good talent. Like they clearly fell off a little bit last year after losing Kareem Hunt. But I know they brought in some guys, but it's still, I think like they're probably going to take a step back with the Steelers, though. I think last year, I kind of overrated them in a sense of not really recognizing how bad that kind of cancerous side kind of was. But I am confident that they will be a better team than they were last year. Like there's not a doubt in my mind.
All right, Mike. Well, let the people know where you're at. What's your social media? What you doing right now? And then we'll say goodbye.
All right. Well, if you're out there, open up Twitter right now. I see you out there. Go on to Twitter right now at Michael Beck 56. Hit that follow button. You can head over to Insta to the Mike Beck. I mean, like you can give me a follow. I'm a clout chaser. Come on, just give me the follows, people. I'd love it. I need it. And it makes me stronger.
He's like Thanos collecting the stones. All right,
exactly.
Guys. Gronk, spike the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Peace.